right when I go on my very first holiday of the year, Apple decides to hold a last-minute event that, according to Tim, was
the biggest day for iPad since its introduction.
Well, now I'm back in the studio, and I've got a lot of thoughts. I'm going to compare the pre-release leaks with what we got and what we didn't with these new iPad Pros and share what I think about all the changes. This video is sponsored by Jackery and their Mini Explorer 100 Plus solar generator. More about it later in the video. And I want to start off with what we got, with the biggest thing here being that new OLED display. This is pretty much just like in the leaks. Ross Young was the very first person to report on Apple using stacked OLED panels for extra brightness, even as early as back in 2022, and this is exactly what we got. I also predicted the brightness levels to match those on the MacBook Pros at 1000 nits in HDR sustained and 1600 nits in HDR peak, which we did get. However, what surprised me here is that these iPad Pros can also sustain 1000 nits in SDR as well, which the MacBook Pros cannot. Meaning that outdoors, we should see almost double the brightness compared to the previous iPad Pros, which topped at 600 nits in SDR. We'll definitely be testing this in a few days once we have the iPads in the studio, so do make sure that you are subscribed for that. Something else that was also rumored and ended up being true was that nano textured glass option. This leak came from a single source on Weibo, and no other leakers corroborated on it at all. I did mention it in our previous iPad Pro videos, but other than that, I haven't seen many people talk about it. Well, we did get it, and unlike my predicted price of $200, it only costs $100 extra. However, for some reason, you can only add it if you buy the 1TB or 2TB model of the iPad Pro, which is very weird. And personally, I just don't see the points of it. It ruins your contrast, defeating the whole benefit of OLED. Plus, why not just get something like Paperlike, which has the same function, plus it also improves your Apple Pencil experience instead, which you can also remove if you ever get tired of it. I bought both the nano-textured option and the one without it, which we'll compare in a future video. The third accurate leak was the thinner body. Those leaked CAD models from back in February showed these new iPads sizes. They were mostly right, except the 11-inch is 5.3mm thick instead of 5.1, and the 13-inch is 5.1 instead of 5. And I do love that Apple made these iPads thinner. Unlike a MacBook, which sits on your desk, you often hold your iPad in the hand, so thinner means lighter too. And Apple cut the weight a lot here. The 13-inch, which was quite heavy, is now over 100 grams lighter. I also missed when Apple made their devices thinner each year, so I'm glad to see this happen again. They even compared it to the 7th gen iPod Nano, their thinnest device so far, which was a really cool throwback. Then we have the M4 chip, which only popped up in reports a week before the event, and I found that quite odd and very hard to believe. I even tweeted about it with my surprise if it did turn out to be true. I questioned why Apple would choose an iPad for the M4's debut, seemingly the least likely device to need it, with me assuming that it was all about the AI enhancements. Previous leaks claimed that the M4 would feature more neural cores to power exclusive AI features in iPadOS 18, but that just wasn't the case, as it turns out that the M4 has the same number of neural cores as the M3 at 16, contradicting the leaks. While Apple puts the M4's neural engine at 38 tops compared to the M3's 18, the real improvement is only about 5% when measured in int8 precision, as Tom's Hardware pointed out. So the M4's neural engine enhancements are quite small. Interestingly, what we did get was an updated CPU in the M4, increasing the core count from 8 to 10, just as I predicted in one of our previous videos. And early benchmarks are showing a 25% boost over the M3, making the M4 the most significant leap in Apple Silicon yet, which we'll of course be putting to the test. Despite all these improvements, I still think that the M4 is just overkill for the iPad, much like the M1 was, given how limiting iPadOS still is. Whether iPadOS 18 changes anything in that regard remains to be seen. And you know what else is overkill, but in a good way? Jackery. Jackery's Mini Explorer 100 Plus is the first solar generator that you can take on flights and trains. At 99 watt-hours and offering 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A, at a maximum output of 128 watts, you can charge multiple devices at the same time on the go. You also get this handy display which shows you the input from mains or solar, including your Jackery's battery level and its output. And weighing under a kilogram, its compact size really makes a difference when you compare it to its older and heavier siblings. And this tiny power station is also built to last, rated for 2000 charge cycles using LFP and NCM batteries, and also offers 6 forms of protection, meaning that you have the peace of mind to take it anywhere you go. And aiming to make green energy more accessible, Jackery is hosting a number of deals on their range of power stations and solar panels. Check out Jackery by using the link below. Now, the next thing that was heavily rumored was an updated Magic keyboard, which was said to be redesigned to look more like a MacBook, with an aluminum top case and a larger trackpad. We even made a concept based on this, and I think we were quite close. However, Apple's one ended up being even better, as number one, they've also brought function keys now, something that was heavily requested, and number two, they've also introduced haptic feedback to the trackpad, and number three, the palm rest is actually made out of aluminum as opposed to the back like it was previously rumored, making it look even more premium when in use. And I'm also pleasantly surprised that Apple kept the same price as before, which I was expecting to increase. Which brings us to the Apple Pencil. And just like the keyboard, this one was also heavily leaked. And even though we did not get the rumored magnetic tips or the color and texture sampling feature, we did get that squeeze gesture as well as the haptics that Mark Gurman reported on right before the event. On top of this, we also got the barrel roll feature, which did not get leaked at all, and I do think that designers will find this incredibly useful as you can now rotate the brush itself. But what I was really surprised to see is Apple calling this the Apple Pencil Pro, despite it being a clear follow-up to the second gen and also being priced the same. And I also find that the Apple Pencil lineup is just so confusing now, with 4 models to choose from, only 2 of which are compatible with these new iPad Pros. And yes, the second gen is not one of them. The last thing that was rumored, and we also ended up getting, was the price increase. For a long time, we've had reports of these new iPads being considerably more expensive than the previous models. A $160 price increase was what was most recently rumored. My personal prediction was a $949 price for the 11-inch model and $1,249 for the 13-inch. But the actual prices ended up being $50 more, or a whopping $200 more than the previous models, which I think is just way too expensive for an iPad, especially when you consider the additional keyboard and the pencil. Which brings us to what we didn't get, the first being a new design. Back in 2021, Mark Gurman and Debbie Wu reported that Apple had been working on a new iPad Pro design with a glass back. Now, even though we haven't had any recent reports on the glass back leak since, in 2023, Mark Gurman reported that this new iPad Pro will still feature a new design. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, a new design is more than just the device getting thinner. And unfortunately, this is the only thing that we got here. The next thing that was leaked, but we never ended up getting, are the bezels, the thinner bezels specifically. These were supposed to shrink by about 10 to 15%, however, they seem to be exactly the same as on the old 2018 models. Next up is MagSafe. This was first reported in that 2021 Mark Gurman and Debbie Wu report, and then reiterated by Mac Rumors in December of 2023. But unfortunately, we did not get MagSafe at all, which I think is quite disappointing, as it would have allowed us to use MagSafe charging stations for the iPad or even mount our iPads in our cars, which would have been a great opportunity for Apple to introduce CarPlay on the iPad itself. And you know what else is cool? Our brand new super cute Playful Pets pack by Wallrod. This is probably our cutest wallpaper pack yet. And we've got 10 iconic pet designs, such as parrot, turtle, puppy, kitten, bunny, fish, squirrel, hedgehog, chameleon, and hamster. All designs look incredible on your phone, tablet, and desktop. And since they're all in 8K, you can actually zoom in a lot and reframe them to your liking. This really cute fish wallpaper is free to download for everyone to use, which you can do so in our app Wallpapers for iOS and Android. On top of this, our Wallpapers competition on our Discord is coming to an end pretty soon, so cast your vote on the top 10 pack ideas that you guys voted on, as the winner will be turned into an actual pack for all of you to use. And the last thing is the camera. Even though this wasn't necessarily leaked, I did expect Apple to update the back camera, as they've been using the same one since the 2018 version. And not only have they not updated the camera at all, but they even removed the ultrawide module from it. Personally, I just don't see this as an issue, as I almost never use the camera on my 2018 iPad Pro at all. But I do think that it is a shame for people who were making use of it, as now paying $200 more actually gives you less in this regard. Overall, I think that the leaks for this iPad Pro were about 80 to 90% correct, as we did actually get most of the rumored changes. I think that now we just have to wait until WWDC to see if iPadOS 18 does actually end up taking better advantage of the power inside this new iPad Pro. And until then, stay tuned for our hands-on comparisons and videos coming in the next few days. I'm Daniel, this is ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.